Greetings. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. We're brought to you by our friends over at Preborn. A recent bombshell report revealed that the abortion pill is literally 10 times more dangerous than what the FDA is claiming, with 11% of women experiencing, quote, serious adverse effects. Unfortunately, the abortion pill accounts for over 60% of abortions today. So as we're cheering the closing of Planned Parenthood clinics, understand that's because we're turning America's mailboxes, every single one, into a potential Planned Parenthood clinic at the same time. All right, so this is, again, why we support Preborn and their network of clinics. They saved over 67,000 babies last year. And I would argue they didn't just save those babies' lives, they may have also saved the souls of their mothers as well. For what happens to the hardening of the heart after you've committed an act as heinous as the murder of your own child. And then once a woman sees her baby and hears that heartbeat courtesy of Preborn, the baby's chances at life doubles. An ultrasound costs just $28, and $140 could rescue up to 5 babies. Any gift helps. All gifts are tax deductible. If you want to give today and join the wide amount of you that have been so generous with this partnership, go to preborn.com/Steve or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby on your mobile phone. That's preborn.com/Steve, preborn.com/Steve. All right. Coming up on today's program, Bob Vander Plaats is going to join us at the bottom of the hour, and he actually is here to praise the big, beautiful bill. And he'll tell us why coming up at the bottom of the hour. Next hour, had the opportunity to watch the entire interview that Kash Patel did with Joe Rogan, the new FBI director. Have some thoughts on that. And then a couple of clips that went around and went viral over the weekend. Are these fair or not? We're going to discuss those coming up in the next hour of the show. And then Brian Festa from We the Patriots USA is going to join us because he thinks he's encountered maybe the most egregious violation of religious liberty he has seen in his career as an activist attorney. So he's going to present that case to us. You'll never guess where it's from, by the way. You guessed it. All right, before we get to all of that, however, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Invasion with a Side of Insurrection. Immigration and Customs Enforcement conducted worksite enforcement actions around Los Angeles, California late last week. Those caught up in ICE sting operations include Quang Phan, an illegal alien from Vietnam with a criminal history that includes a conviction for second-degree murder for opening fire and shooting up a high school graduation party. Rolando Veneracion Enriquez, a 55-year-old from the Philippines who was convicted of burglary, sexual penetration with a foreign object, and assault with intent to commit rape. Lionel Sanchez Laguna, a 55-year-old Mexican. His criminal history includes battery on a spouse or cohabitant, willful cruelty to a child, and driving under the influence. 44-year-old Armando Ordaz of Mexico. Ordaz's criminal history includes sexual battery, receiving known or stolen property, and petty theft. Around 45 in total were arrested in raids in Los Angeles. Naturally, this happened.
From here, look at the flag. Yeah, Guy, I see
there it is.
You
Mexican flag can,
What we're seeing in Los Angeles is chaos that is provoked by the administration. When you raid Home Depot and workplaces, when you tear parents and children apart, and when you run armored caravans through our streets, you cause fear and you cause panic.
There's no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody, threatened anybody. Nothing has happened.
I have zero confidence. He's acting recklessly. He's acting unlawfully. He's putting people's lives at risk. And it's my job to clean up Donald Trump's mess.
Just based on previous protests that we've covered, tempers get extremely short. There aren't a lot of bathrooms. People get hungry. Opportunists come in, agitators come in, looking to try to seal the narrative or a turn.
The reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles. And again, any violence against police officers should not be accepted. Local authorities can handle that. But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the President of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion by arresting people who are showing up for their immigration hearings.
The vast majority of protesters and demonstrators are peaceful. They're passionate.
You told me you got caught up in the tear gas as well. Describe what happened to you.
Oh, just tasted a little tear gas. Tasted like fascism.
President Trump deployed 2,000 National Guardsmen to California in Los Angeles to help quell the riots. Border Czar Tom Homan had nothing good to say, of course, about California leadership.
I'd love to get your response to Governor Newsom saying, essentially, that your actions here are provocative, and the quote that he used was sowing chaos.
Governor Newsom's an embarrassment for the state. He's the one that's feeding this mantra. He supports sanctuary cities. He supports sanctuary laws. If he cared about public safety in the state of California, he would not have a sanctuary for criminals, where criminals get released to the streets of this state every day because of his policy.
President Trump says California leaders could get arrested if they get in the way of ICE enforcement.
Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden. They will stand in the way of law and order. Yeah, they will face charges.
Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy.
Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, watching her own country's flag being flown abroad in violent and destructive riots, is actively fomenting said riots, expressing solidarity with the illegals. In recent weeks, she's expressed disdain for the big, beautiful bill because it has a provision within it that taxes remittances from the United States to foreign countries at a rate of 3.5%. Remittances are basically where illegals come and work here in the United States and then send their money back to their home country. Speaking of the big, beautiful bill, Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt says he doesn't want to tax remittances at 3.5%. He says he's introducing legislation that would tax remittances at 15%. Here he is talking to the Daily Signal recently.
The jobs are shipped overseas for cheaper labor, slave labor, and nobody really wanted to talk about that. There was certainly a motive behind that. And then the people who were left behind in many ways were replaced with cheap, illegal, or mass migration here. And people are smart. And when you're in a state like Missouri, and I ran statewide 3 times in 6 years, you get around and and you talk to people. And Missouri was for a long time very much a bellwether state. You've got urban, suburban, exurban, rural. You got Southeast Missouri is much more like the South, and Northwest Missouri is much more like Nebraska. It's a sort of the cultural crossroads of the country. And when you get around and you talk to people, that's what they couldn't believe what was happening. And so when Joe Biden's letting 15 million people here illegally, people don't understand, how could the president of our country allow this? And the answer is that he bought into and was captured by this worldview that there wasn't anything particularly unique, that America was just some economic zone with an airport attached to it. And what we're saying is, no, America's much more than that. It's our home. We're a people, and we believe in things, and that we ought to be fighting for the dignity of the guy that doesn't have the PhD, but who wants to work, and he wants to be able to raise a family, and he wants his kids to have a better life. So I think it's important, before we talk about the future and where this goes, is we had to talk about the past, and there has to be a reckoning with what went wrong.
And finally, remember a couple of years ago when Elon Musk and Donald Trump had their big, beautiful beef, where Elon Musk said President Trump was on the Epstein list? Well, looky here. Musk is now positively and supportively posting screenshots from Trump's Truth Social account. I'd almost forgotten about that beef. And that's what happened while we were away.
As your montage was playing there, Aaron, I was just kind of silently praying to make sure what I say next has an appropriate amount of wisdom, and in my own anger, I do not sin. So, with that being said, so far, Donald Trump has shown a remarkable level of self-awareness when it comes to identifying what happened to him in his first administration. From the opening weekend of Let's Debate how many people in photos showed up at my inauguration to Barack Obama, we really haven't seen any misappropriation of political capital for just pettiness and silliness. seeking approval from people who are never going to be granting it no matter what you do. Am I fair in saying that? We have not seen that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. It's night and days.
I think he's been remarkably disciplined compared to where he was before. So, box checked. I think on the COVID front, I mean, I don't know how much more you could get that's realistic from Donald Trump. If you want to, I have sinned against you, then you're asking monkeys to fly out of your own butt. That's just not how he operates, how he rolls. If that's what you're looking for on the COVID front, I think you're entitled to look for that, given what was done to the country. You'll be looking until the cows come home. At least on some level, we all have to recognize, and we may all disagree and debate, and that's fair too, to what level atonement was practiced. But specifically going out and hiring some of the most vocal dissidents against the scamdemic to now head much of the public health bureaucracy cannot possibly be a coincidence. Is that also fair?
Yes.
I think that's so. On some level, we are doing the checking of boxes of where things went wrong before, right? A lot of times, a chief of staff in a White House is kind of like an offensive line in a football team. Like at the end of the game, when you're just grinding out yards and wearing the other team down, that's when you suddenly realize, hey, the offensive line here has been pretty good. But typically until that point, if anybody's talking about the offensive line during the game broadcast, until that point in the game, it's almost always not positive. Fair?
Yeah, I see you.
So I think the chief of staff is kind of the same way, right? In terms of how much things have been on lockdown, and there have been, hey, no one's going to bat 1,000, man. The greatest hitter who ever lived, the splendid Splinter himself, the best season he ever had, he failed 6 out of 10 times. All right, no one's batting 1,000. Like the misstep going to the National Cathedral and not necessarily knowing who the pagan witch priestess was going to be that got served up that day, right? Okay, but by and large, and here's the other thing you can tell if you've got a good chief of staff. Pretty much everybody that she doesn't have or he doesn't have a personal relationship with does not like that person. Same thing as an offensive line. Any great offensive line will tell you their goal at the end of it is by the end of the game, we want to make the other guys quit and just hate our guts. That's our goal. We want to make them just quit, hate football and hate our guts. If you're not in Susie Wild's internal circle, there's not like a lot of people casually saying, hey, I like her. She's okay. She's either, Darth Vader to you or Joan of Arc. That's actually a decent sign for a chief of staff. So again, launching with Susie Wiles compared to Reince Priebus. Another box checked here?
Yes.
Keeping the focus on issues by and large. Not getting down into the mud and the dirt on a daily basis with media guys to let them drag you down into minutia because they're never going to be on the ballot, right? While you and your party are, okay? By and large, haven't seen that from Sean Spicer, launching with Sean Spicer to Caroline Leavitt. Box checked, probably, again.
Yes.
So you're seeing the last few years in between trying to avoid prison and later assassination bullets, you can see that Team Trump in his inner sanctum, just based on the cursory review that we just did, self-assessed, did some homework, had some self-awareness. All right, if we get back there again, what do we need to do differently? No Rex Tillerson. Marco Rubio to Rex Tillerson at stake. Box checked.
Yes.
Think we can check that one?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm still not so sure that Pam Bondi and Jeff Sessions is all that much of an upgrade. I guess we'll see. Okay. But by and large, you can see earnest attempts to learn from past mistakes. I think at a minimum, that is fair.
Absolutely.
All right. What's going to happen this week may be the sternest test of that paradigm yet. And here's why. Because up until this week, by and large, Trump was able to be proactive. He was in situations that by and large he controlled. Now you make a misstep in your messaging, you make a bad appointment, you can lose control, right? But he is the one provoking action. He is signing executive orders. He's making appointments. He's sending the big, beautiful bill to Capitol Hill. We are sitting here today is June the 9th. The president was inaugurated on January 20th. And so for nearly 6 months concurrently, which is really amazing when you stop and think about it, given what's been going on in the world, by and large, with the exception of the Ukraine situation, Trump has been dictating terms comprehensively across the board, well, and the courts. But we're going to table that one for now. In fact, I think we could go so far as to say where a president can traditionally play offense and dictate terms, for the most part, traditionally, I understand that based on tradition, as we understand it in this era, what this show advocates for the courts is doesn't line up with your traditions. It does line up with the older traditions of this country, as Newt Gingrich told us a week ago. Okay, but by and large, with the current modern traditional understanding of the presidency, by and large, Trump has been the one on offense in dictating terms. Is that fair?
Yes.
And there's your first by and large of the show. Take a drink. Right. This weekend is the first time now that he has to react and will be demanded to react. I mean, I understand, even though I'm convinced I'm right, I understand that I am a minority within the minority when it comes to the courts within my own side. I understand that. I've been having that argument for 15 years. I get that. Okay, even though I think I'm right, I understand, though, that it is still not an argument that is within mainstream of my own side. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. So to many Americans, including many people that voted for President Trump, this is really the first test. We had a trade war over tariffs because who initiated it? Trump. We're having the current conversations about whether to focus more on vaccine injury and origin or chronic illness as it relates to unhealthy food, because who initiated that conversation?
Trump and JFK and RFK.
And who gave RFK the platform to initiate it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He is the one that has been the initiator in all of the various disputes and fights that have occurred in the first 6 months of his presidency now. That changed this weekend. And I will be very fascinated to see how the White House responds. The messaging has been very good, but the rioting continues. Now, I would love to be able to say, California voted for this. Give him the Jim Bob, Grandpa Zebediah Walton treatment and let him choke on it. Because they keep voting for it over and over again. So clearly the suffering hasn't reached, forget the levels that our Catholic friend Todd thinks of suffering are necessary. Okay. Even your seeker-sensitive Protestant minister doesn't think we've reached the level of suffering that California needs to yet. All right. That's why he's not living there either. Okay. So I would love to be able to say, as one does out there, and we're just going to move on with the rest of America and just let them suffer the consequences for their actions and kick the dust off their sandals, off our sandals. I would love to be able to do this. Here's why we can't. Because the likelihood is high that this is an initial foray into a concerted effort. These are stormtroopers of a color revolution. As Aaron said before the show, this is an attempt to reenact the Summer of Love and have these things spread to urban areas all throughout the country. There's already a story this morning in Florida. They're planning them there for later this week. I think I saw you even retweet that story after I saw it, Aaron, with a bucket of popcorn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here is the thing that this White House has to learn. They have to learn this. And I'm going to say this because I'm just not going to take for granted they know it. I did this the first time, and I found out they didn't know this. Now, we've got way different people in charge. And I'm going to tell you, just at least on the vice president's side of the West Wing there, right down the hall from the White House, the T level from J.D. Vance's office to the perpetually furrowed-browed one is dramatically different. You know what? I don't care, though. I'm probably going to make some people mad when I say this. I'm doing this because I want us to win. So I'm going to say this out loud right now. You're going to get all of the blowback as if you treated these invaders and insurrectionists with maximum prejudice. You will receive all the political blowback from those who hate you as if you did, whether you will do so or not. You're dealing with people who believe words hurt me. Words are hateful. Words are bigotry. Words are violence, even. So this time, there cannot be 3 a.m. post on Truth Social, insurrection in all caps with four exclamation points. Because they're going to take that to all of our enemies, and you're going to get all of their blowback as if you had violently put them down, whether you're going to do so or not. So then violently put it down. Earn the blowback. Earn it. You will receive it nevertheless. Because voters in the middle are sick of this crap. They respond to strength. They respond to leadership. So demonstrate it. Treat invaders accordingly. You want to wave the foreign flag on our lands? Well, then we will treat you as an enemy combatant, as an invader. And I'm pretty confident our weapons are better than yours. No more. This time we're not going to put Law and Order on Twitter while we evacuate the White House and there's fire set across the street of Washington, D.C. because you let this spread all summer long. Nope. That simply cannot happen. You're being tested. Again, my inclination, we've debated in various other contexts on this show the last few years. How much do we just let these blue cities just choke on their own vomit? How much do you just move on? They made their bed. They slept in it. I mean, how much do we continue to degrade our own country, chasing after that which cannot be caught, right? No one loves us more than Christ, and he also gives a standard of eventually kick the dust off your sandals and move on. Message has been heard. It's been rejected. The hearts are hard, right? We've discussed this on numerous fronts on how much to truly try to save these blue states, right? This isn't one of those times. The Trump White House is being tested. You will receive all the blowback. Because you said insurrection, because you said law and order, and because these people preach the Marxist mantra that words are violence, you will receive all of the necessary blowback from your opposition, whether you eliminate one of these invaders or not. Posting that online is like literally sending Marine snipers in with shoot to kill orders. That's how you'll be treated. So acknowledge this going in and give up the ghost on that. That doesn't mean go in recklessly. That doesn't mean be stupid, cavalier, careless. Be the presidential equivalent of Michael Douglas in Falling Down What it does mean, though, is do not let this handcuff you and prohibit you from doing what must be done. That's the test. And if it's not done here, this will start showing up in blue areas of states Trump did win. It'll be in Philly next. It'll be in Detroit next. It'll be in Milwaukee next. It'll be in Charlotte next. Mark my words. To quote the great prophet Jean-Luc Picard, the line must be drawn here. Draw the line. 4 years ago, frankly, if we're being honest, President Trump, he wobbled and never got back control of the narrative of this. And we lived for how many weeks with a invading sector of Chaz in one of our sovereign states?
He did.
This is a test. And it is the first test this White House has faced now that they're not the initiators. Even the problems that you're having with the courts, whose actions is it that the courts are trying to interpose against? Trump's. This is the first time now a fight has been picked that Trump did not initiate. He's being tested. Are we just going to do like the first time? Okay, yeah, you're kind of cocky when you're going up against Jim Acosta and the douche-tastic beta core of media. But we send the Stormtroopers into the streets. Where's the tough talk then? Right? We lived through this, did we not? That test is being held again. Can't fail. Otherwise, the cancer will spread. It needs to be removed. It needs to be made an example out of. And if you don't, you'll get all the blowback for it anyway, and we'll lose 40 House seats next year because you'll have demonstrated weakness to them, and then the people in the middle who are just sick of this and want to know that they can send their kids out to play in the streets and be safe, they'll go against you because you looked weak. This is what happened to us before. It cannot happen to us again. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Yeah, simple messaging is required in order to focus the attention necessary to do hard things. I don't want to talk about turning the Gaza Strip into the new Riviera if at the very same time here in our homeland we're going to let LA turn into the new Gaza Strip. I don't want to have, and you see the images of trains full of military tanks coming into DC for a military parade. I don't want to have a military parade in the nation's capital at the very same time that military should be having a far more formal parade in LA to put down what's going on there. We need to lead. We need to be men again. We need to understand the duties of citizenship. That requires doing exactly what Steve is talking about. It's time to get busy living or get busy dying. It's not really more complicated than that. Are we a nation worth defending or not?
I think it's Lyndon Johnson is who this quote is attributed to. Power is where power goes.
Correct.
Well, I like to say power is as power does. What these protests, to me, what's different about these protests, air quotes for those of you listening, these riots, as opposed to letting these blue states choke on it, is that these are actually attempts to challenge Trump's power. These are not just blue states are as blue states do. This is just blue states being blue states, Los Angeles being Los Angeles. These are concerted efforts to troll the rest of the country. They're not just waving Mexican flags because they love Mexico. They're doing it to troll you, to challenge your power. That's what so you cannot show any weakness. That's what I'm trying to say. You cannot show any sign of weakness whatsoever.
Amen. More in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Joined now by our good friend Bob Vander Plaats from the Family Leader. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Doing really well. How about you? I heard you're in Phoenix enjoying the warmth, I assume?
I mean, it was a dry heat, like a flamethrower. But yeah,
like an oven.
It was warm.
It's still a dry heat.
Yeah, it's still dry. Yeah. Let's get to, you know what? I want to do this before we move to the topic that I told the audience with you were going to address. And that is, I want to get your take on something I said right before you came on, talking about what's happening with the riots in LA right now. And there's a big part of me, and I've argued for this at times over the last few years in other contexts, just to let these blue states just choke on their own vomit at this point. I mean, no one could possibly love us more than Jesus does, and he says there's a moment where the dust is kicked off of sandals and you just move on. Hearts have been hardened. You've clearly made what you really believe in total, made it well known. So we've got
reap your reward.
Yep, we've got more receptive audiences to take this to, and I mean, how much do we just continue to let these blue states degrade the culture as a whole, where we just tell them, you know what, you do you, man, and we're going to do us, and have a nice life, and we'll see you after you fall into the Pacific, okay? But in this case, I think it's pretty clear this is an audition to replay the Summer of Love from 2020. And I think that this is a test of the White House. And I pointed out that it's clear that Trump and his team did a lot of homework over what went wrong 4 years ago. And they have made a lot of the corrections in place in order to not repeat those mistakes, which is good. But for the first 6 months of his presidency, it's the White House that's been initiating confrontation. The debate over the big, beautiful bill, that's their bill. They initiated the debate over the courts. It's over what they're trying to legislate or what they're trying to, executive order. It's constantly been them on offense. This is the first time now we're going to test their resolve on defense, where they now have to respond to something. If you go back to what happened, we have the worst of both worlds in the summer of 2020. The president's out there tweeting insurrection at 3 a.m. and his words are violent, so he's basically getting the maximum blowback as if he had done what was necessary to put this down and then did not. And we lost voters in the middle because that's how you look weak, okay? So my advice this time was acknowledge the fact that just tweeting out on Truth Social at 3 a.m., law and order, is like you sent the National Guard sniper unit in. That's just how you're going to be treated by the other side. So therefore, earn it. This time, earn it.
Send the National Guard
send them in.
unit.
And if you want to wave foreign flags and destroy my country and act as an invader and an enemy combatant, we will gladly oblige you, and we will clean up your mess for you. And this time, voters in the middle will say, yeah, I know California's kind of crazy, but now I know you won't let that happen where I live, and that you'll demonstrate and show strength, because you're going to get the maximum blowback from the other side as if you did that anyway, so you might as well go ahead and get the benefits of doing so, unlike what happened 4 years ago. Or 8 years ago, I should say.
I think your take on it is exactly right. And what you're seeing here is
it was 4. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A tale of two cities being played out. You have Trump saying, listen, we're a country of law, we're a country of order, you're not going to do this on our soil, we will intervene here. And then you have a governor and Gavin Newsom who wants to run for president, and he's trying to show that I'm not woke anymore. I think girls play against girls, boys against boys, that kind of stuff. But now he's out there defending the rioters trying to burn down, his city, his state, LA, saying, president needs to get out of here. Let me take care of this business. So to me, when you take a look at the juxtaposition there, I've got to believe America, common sense, red, white, and blue America says, I'm with Trump. I'm with Homan. I'm with these guys saying, we're a country of law, we're a country of order. And if you're going to make a stand in California, I think you're going to make a stand in Wichita. I think you're going to make a stand in Des Moines. I think you're going to make a stand in these other cities as well. So I think he's doing the right thing. And I think he did. I think, Steve, to your point, after the whole George Floyd thing and the whole COVID, I think he's, he learned a lesson there. I'm sending him in. But to your point, in, rules for patriots, do not shoot what you don't intend to kill. You're in now. Now make sure you clean it up.
That is my point.
You bet.
I mean, I think we should be, shall we say, seeing the results, I guess is maybe the best way I'll put it. Is that a euphemism? Is that euphemism acceptable? I think we should now be seeing results of what happens when people act as enemy combatants and invaders on our country. I think the results therein should be demonstrated. Don't you think?
I do. And I think actions speak a whole lot louder than words.
All right. Aaron, I want you to say out loud to the audience what you just said to me during the break.
If I had to wave a magic wand, I would tell the White House, and I would ensure that the White House places the National Guard preemptively on alert in the top 20 biggest cities in this country by Saturday, because there's this massive protest, these massive marches being planned. I mean, there's like 8 or 10 cities here in Iowa alone that supposedly have some sort of protest planned here on Saturday. I would put the National Guard on active alert in the top 20 biggest cities in this country, because at the same time that Trump is having this military parade in Washington, D.C., I think it would be a terrible look in Moscow, in Tehran, in Beijing, for us to have this big military parade in Washington, D.C., while potentially in our biggest cities, they're going to try to make Los Angeles look like tiddlywinks. That's just my spidey senses tingling there.
What do you think of that?
I think it's an excellent idea. And as a matter of fact, I think the other thing you need to do is have a conference call, especially with your red state governors, like Governor DeSantis, Governor Reynolds, others, where they're probably going to be planning this stuff, saying, I need your leadership now, too, as governor of your state. Show them the difference between a red state and a blue state. Show them what leadership looks like here. But we're not going to take this stuff. Aaron, I think it's a brilliant idea.
Well, one of the problems you have is many of the decisive states in this last election that Trump won have Democratic governors. Arizona,
Wisconsin,
Michigan. Pennsylvania, Michigan, right?
Yep.
North Carolina. Okay, you have Democratic governors in the 5 decisive states of the last election. So they all have, even though Trump won them, they have Democratic governors.
But you might as well showcase in a state like Iowa with Governor Reynolds, a state like Florida with Governor DeSantis, a state like Georgia with Governor Kemp. Show the difference of what does it look like. Because I got to believe Atlanta would be one of those target cities as well.
Of course. Yeah, you bet it would. Yep. All right, let's go to what we originally brought you on to talk about before the rioting started yesterday. I'm going to give you a quote from your own X account, and I want you to elaborate on this for our audience.
You bet.
Okay. Quote, while admittedly not perfect, this is the most pro-family and pro-America bill to come out of the United States Congress. #pass the bill. And you're talking about the big, beautiful bill that there's a lot of argument about on the right. Okay. On various fronts. Does it go too far? I mean, in many respects...
Does it not go far enough?
Does it not go far enough? In many respects, this bill is a highlighting of why it is so hard for us to govern as a party. There's just too many disparate belief systems and worldviews. And listen, I love Thomas Massey to death. Some of the best friends I've had in politics have been Ron Paul people. I just don't believe in the climate alarmism version of the economy. I just think we have too many weapons, too many consumers, that we're just going to, one day wake up and just, it's going to be the Omega Man. I just don't believe that. Okay. But those are people I tend to agree with that I disagree with on this. Okay. We've lived as a debtor nation for decades. I think it's time to figure out how we've managed to do that. All right. And acknowledge that reality so that we can, govern accordingly. But there are so many disparate factions on our side right now that negatively or positively, you can almost project anything on such an all-encompassing bill as this, whatever you want.
You bet.
All right, so why are you projecting this on it?
Well, first of all, it kind of shows you where my bar of expectation is for Congress. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not going to do a whole lot of, in my view, they're not going to do a lot of good. But so how do you be the Dutch boy, put the finger in the dike, say, try to hold that dike together? But Steve, when I take a look at this bill, the first one I take a look at is you're going to defund Planned Parenthood. For a long time, I thought, how does God send revival to a country? We pray desperately for revival in this country while we subsidize the killing of our babies. So to me, it's almost a full stop there. If you're going to put that in there and that has an opportunity to pass, that you're going to defund abortion providers, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. To me, I don't need to go through all the different reasons. To me, that's the main one. But you take a look at the family leader. The family leader, we're a multi-million-dollar entity here, a nonprofit, that kind of thing. But we're small potatoes. And what did Joe Biden do when he was president? He hired 87,000 new IRS agents to do what? Go after the family leader and entities like ours. Why? To make sure that you guys don't have a voice. What this bill does, it defunds that garbage. And so to me, there's another one like, all right, I'm in. I'm going to hire more ICE agents. Why? For the stuff that you're seeing in LA right now. I'm going to build a wall. The stuff that you're seeing, we're a country of law and order. I'm going to extend the estate taxes so you can pass on your business, you can pass on your family farm, versus indebting the next generation. I'm going to make it so you can be successful. I am going to have a lot of money in rollbacks. I'm going to do some tax. This doesn't go near far enough. I get it. But I do believe Trump when he's saying, you know what, listen, we need to start reining in D.C., and that's why you have a guy like Elon Musk with Doge, and you start seeing some of that in this bill as well. I'm also going to do the tariffs. Why? Because I think we need to have countries pay their fair share. But I do believe he's right economically. He's saying this is how you're going to balance things economically. But here's some good things that are going to come in this bill for the family and to strengthen this country. Matter of fact, when I've got my peers in D.C. taking a look at the bill, they said this is one of the first times that a bill got more pro-family in its progression. Then they always want to negotiate. All right, Planned Parenthood's back on the table. We're going to fund Planned Parenthood. Taxes on wages, taxes on tips, or taxes on overtime, taxes on tips, that's back in. Okay, we'll keep funding that. Not this time. So to me, there's a lot of good reasons why we as pro-family and pro-American should say, listen, pass this bill. You got it out of the House already. Now pass it in the Senate. Now, is that the end all to this deal? No, now go after the next bill. You need to start cleaning up the rest of this stuff, but get this thing done. That's my opinion.
All right, Todd and I want to get you guys' reaction here in a minute. First, a word about our friends over at Raycon. If you are looking for the perfect sidekick here with summertime here, more activity here, more time outdoors here as well, with that perfect sidekick, the Everyday Earbuds by Raycon. They're the perfect summer accessory, whether you're going to the gym, just enjoying the sun, those work calls you're taking outside. You get premium audio with you wherever you go. And their latest model, better than ever, with a 32-hour battery life, multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. And then that battery with Raycon's quick charge function, just 10 minutes of charging, yields 90 minutes of battery. They come with active noise cancellation, something difficult to find as well at such an accessible price point. It's vibrant colors too, if you're into that. If you're a guy, you shouldn't be. All right. But please provide yourself the notion that whatever color is a guy works just fine. All you care about is functionality. If you're a chick, have a favorite color. If you're a guy, you're agreed?
Yes.
Guys can have a perfect color for their earbuds. Chicks can have as many perfect colors as they want, but guys, no. You cannot have a... I'm providing you a public service. What you can, though, have is a great functional set of earbuds, all right? So if you are not sure whether or not you're going to love your Raycons, you will. They offer you a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy, no questions asked. Just go to buyraycon.com/Steve to get 15% off Raycon's best-selling everyday earbuds. Right now, Raycon is offering 15% off their best-selling everyday earbuds at buyraycon.com/Steve. These are phenomenal earbuds. I know my kids keep taking mine. Buyraycon.com/Steve, RAYCON, buyraycon.com/Steve. All right, Todd and Aaron, you just heard Bob's case here for the big, beautiful bill. What do you guys think?
Well, our conversation about LA and really focusing on a clarity of purpose of what it requires to maintain a civilization worth having is needed here when we talk about this budget bill. And now that the two are happening at the same time, all the more. We have got to be the grown-ups in the room and give, as you said about the red states, show them a clear alternative about what actual leadership looks like. If the senators have a very specific fix, it's never going to be everything you want. But if they have that, absolutely put it forward. There's no question they've deserved the right to be heard on that front. But Steve is right. I think that's the first time I've ever heard him use that analogy, but it's right. You do not want to look like a global warming reactionary whenever a budget bill comes up in a nation that right now, let's face it, we have even on the right, we're drunk on other people's money as well right now. There is no way to make this into the Thomas Massey perfect bill. America doesn't want that. Might be much to our everlasting shame ultimately, but here in this moment, we're juggling multiple chainsaws in the air. And we have got to be serious about putting as many of them down as fast as possible. And that means put forward whatever you're going to do on the fix on the Senate side and let the chips fall there they may.
I think I'm coming down on the side of, I think defunding Planned Parenthood, obviously and objectively, a very positive development if that goes through. That is objectively a good thing. And it's something that, let's just be honest, it's been low-hanging fruit for a long time, but much like moving the embassy in Israel, it's something that it looks like President Trump may be able to deliver on. But where I'm coming down on this big, beautiful bill is, I don't know if this is happening this morning or if this happened yesterday in Los Angeles, but there are purportedly Mexican nationalists joining in with Antifa, lighting cars on fire, breaking into cars, lighting them on fire, using the American flag as kindling while waving the Mexican flag. To me, this is kind of like the Hippocratic Oath. If somebody comes into a hospital, you don't know how much money they have, you don't know if they have health insurance, health sharing, what have you, and they have a gunshot wound, you got to treat that. Let's just get that taken care of. That's kind of where I'm coming down on this bill. The deportations, the funding of ICE.
You view the bill as triage.
As triage, exactly.
I'm fine, by the way, with everybody negotiating as much as they can to get the best deal. A lot of the things we like the most would not have happened without
question.
Without what the House Freedom Caucus did, okay, on curbing some of the green energy stuff and everything they did. So I'm totally fine with that. But I need more than a nebulous, it spends too much. Okay, then tell me what the number is then. Tell the average American, what is the difference between if we're $37 trillion in debt or $29 trillion? Does anybody here know? We're all really smart people. Can you quantify?
And can you do that at the same time that you convince the White House you can get 60 votes or 51 votes, whatever?
I mean, so, okay, does anybody really know how much different my life will be if we're 28 trillion in debt or 37 trillion in debt? That's the thing. We have to explain this stuff to people in ways they understand. Otherwise, you're just making meta points like climate alarmists in order to fit a narrative that really so far has not come true for most people.
And the other thing is, because I love Thomas Massey. I know him. I traveled the state with him here. Really, really good guy.
Yes, he is. I love
the thing is,
30 seconds.
The thing is, I mean, a lot of these people in Congress, it took Elon Musk to come in and Doge to say, look what's happening under your watch, and then you're outraged by this stuff. My big thing right now, this advances the ball on a lot of fronts, whether it's illegal immigration, whether it's pro-family, pro-estate, and defunding the abortion providers. That, to me, is move that down the hill, get that thing passed, and now let's keep working. That doesn't mean this thing's done. Keep working.
Thank you, Bob. Hour 2 is next. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. And I had to clear my throat. You can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And then please don't forget to subscribe to our new YouTube channel. We need as many of you as possible to do this for us, please. All right, we've kind of stalled out there. And I know a little bit more than about 14,000 people are tuned into this show. Okay? So we need to keep that going. We got to crank that up. Those are rookie numbers. We got to get those up. All right. So please help us with that, please. Subscribe to the new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. If you ordered Richie Meets the Rainbow, we are in the process of fulfilling your autographed edition right now. Hundreds have already gone out in the mail. So it's coming. So please be patient. Books just got delivered late last week. If you're waiting for the retail, so am I. I have no idea when it will go live. I don't have a clue.
I've been checking on Amazon like 2 times a day.
So
it's just...
I checked with my publishing team right before we went on the air, and they said, I mean, they seem to be optimistic it'll get approved, but it's still showing it's in review, and there's no accountability for these companies at all. I mean, in review could mean nothing. Could mean everything. So I may get a text in the middle of this show. I may never sell another copy of Richie Meets the Rainbow. So I really don't know the answer to that as we're sitting here now at 12:02 local time in the middle of the show. That's why I haven't mentioned it yet. That's why I haven't talked about it yet. I don't know when it will go retail. So I do know 2,500 of you are going to get a copy autographed by yours truly. I know that. We're in the process of fulfilling those. But as for whether the rest of you get a chance to see the book, I don't know.
It's like you're selling a book in LA, it's just. So is the Mexican flag waving over Amazon headquarters?
Well, if I'd done, Richie meets, migrants, do you think we'd be sitting here right now if we had done Richie meets migrants? Think we'd have done that? Then again, with me writing I wouldn't have written Richie meets migrants. It'd have been Richie meets illegal aliens. Okay.
I'm sure a number of individuals, probably those listening, are aware of this. But here's the game. Here's one of the problems with Amazon. It's basically the Wild West. If an American inventor copyrights and produces something, but he uses a Chinese factory to build it, or even if he doesn't, Chinese factories just copy the exact same thing and build it for pennies on the dollar, and there's nothing the American inventor can do about it. And Amazon doesn't give a whit, seemingly.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
but an American
books
author
claiming they're by me and autobiographies I had nothing to do with. Yeah.
An American author self-publishes a book. Hey, we're good to go, and it's under review.
Yeah.
We'll see you next 2035.
Oh, yeah, we'll see you never. I mean, we could put it up on Barnes & Noble, but if a tree falls in the forest, man, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm kind of better off. I don't know how Barnes & Noble is even still in business, man. I don't have a clue. I don't. When your primary competition is getting 86% of all the revenue in your industry every day, I have no idea.
It's always busy. We have 2 Barnes & Noble here.
I know.
It's always busy.
I know, but I mean, I can just look at, we put Fauci and Bargain up on Barnes & Noble too, and I can just tell you, I know the numbers of what we sold there compared to, we sold about 86% of our copies on Amazon.com because that's the amount of books that get sold there every day. So I have no clue. I'll keep you guys posted. I don't know. All right. Where'd we leave off? Oh, don't forget, if you love the podcast version, to leave us a 5-star review, please. Thank you if you have done that already. Make sure to hit subscribe or follow if you're on iTunes these days. And that makes sure that whenever we do a new episode, you can be sure it'll be in your podcast feed every single time. So thank you for doing that for us as well. Want to thank our friends over at Beam. Just used Beam the other night again, man. I got a bit of a complaint with Beam. It works so well, and I'm in such a deep sleep that when the alarm goes off, I'm like, it can't be 6 a.m. already. It can't be. Like I'm not waking up to pee or anything. So like the normal markers I typically have when I look at the clock to give an idea how much time I've been asleep, I'm out. Next thing I know, the alarm goes off. I'm like, man, it went by fast. But I feel great. All right. So if you want that kind of sleep, because I had a buddy of mine tell me yesterday, right now he is going to bed at like 6 a.m. and waking up at like 9. And I wonder, just because of the nature of the way we do society these days, where we're just in front of these screens and getting a different kind of stimulation all the time in order to live. There's just no way to live in our modern society without that. I mean, there's just not a way to do it. Okay. I wonder if maybe we've got more sleep issues because of that. On top of the fact we're not exhausted. So we're stimulating our minds, but we're not exhausting our bodies the way we used to, because we're also more sedentary than we've ever been to at the same time, right? And so this is where something like Beam could really come in and help you. It's an American company too, founded by people who have the same values that you do. They use science-backed ingredients like magnesium, melatonin, and others. With their hot cocoa you drink right before you go to bed. Don't worry, it's not loaded with sugar and carbs either. They've got numerous different flavors of the Dream Powder. I use the chocolate peanut butter version, all right? And you're going to be lights out in minutes, and then your alarm's going to go off too, and you're going to be like, holy crap, man, I slept through the night. Just like that. All right, so here's the deal. They're going to give you the Ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off. If you try their best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time at shopbeam.com/Steve. Use the code Steve at checkout. Shopbeam, BEAM, M as in mercy. All right, shopbeam.com/Steve and use the code Steve for up to 40% off to sleep better, wake up stronger, show up ready. All right, let's get her done. Shopbeam.com/Steve. Okay. Because we have a guest at the bottom of the hour with a story we wanted to highlight for you, there is no Ask Me Anything this week. Because frankly, I just think it takes me too long to answer your questions to even just do it for one segment. So to me, if we're not going to do it for a whole hour, not to mention there was an interview that took place that I think we need to discuss. As sitting FBI Director Kash Patel sat down with the closest thing this generation has to Oprah in terms of audience size of a talk show, that's Joe Rogan. Sat down with Joe Rogan for 2 hours. All three of us watched at least some of it. I got a chance last night to watch the entire thing. I want to share some observations of it, and then there's two particular clips I want us to play and discuss to see if we think, because both of these clips went viral over the weekend, and see if they're fair. Okay? So let me start with just kind of my overall impressions of Kash. I thought he came across very likable and sincere throughout most of the interview. He did not come across to me as overtly smooth, so I never felt like he was trying to sell me on a narrative. There was a moment I thought he was trying to sell himself on a narrative. I'll get to that in a second. Okay, but I did not feel as if I was being sold during this conversation. And now let me say this, though. I don't know the guy at all, and this is the longest exposure to him I have ever received, was watching the entirety of this 2-hour interview with Joe Rogan. All I've seen from him are clips here and there. I don't know him at all. So that's just my impression of him from this interview. I can't speak any more broadly than that. I thought the opening 30 minutes or so, as Kash was laying out the China-driven fentanyl crisis and why it is China-driven, and then the Russian collusion hoax that he helped to debunk, I thought that was easily the strongest part of the interview. I thought he was very impressive during the initial exchange. Now, the part where it felt to me like he was trying to sell himself on a narrative is the Epstein conversation. And really, this is the only part of this interview. Much was discussed for 2 hours, but this was the only part of this interview that went viral. And Kash even said he knew, as they were taping it, that he knew this would be the part that would go viral. He also did something I found fascinating, which is complain about essentially Trump's online social media influencer network. Basically complained about him. Did you guys stick around long enough to see that? That these people are just raising expectations beyond too high. They're taking things out of context. They don't live in the real world. I mean, he's really talking about Trump's online social media influencer network, by and large. That's who most of these kinds of people are, okay? During the conversation at Epstein, Rogan showed Kash Patel a couple of different angles and reports discussing the discussion we were having and considering the discussion about suspicious activity surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. Okay. Now, what was incredulous to me, because if you watch elsewhere in this interview, Kash has his information on lockdown. He is citing specific sources and media and what they did and did not say about him and Trump on multiple occasions over the course of several years. But in this part of the interview, as Rogan is confronting him with actual reports and not obscure places like the New York Times, Kash acted like he didn't know like any of this stuff, and it was the first he was ever hearing of it. Again, I don't know him at all, so I'll take it at face value. But I found that to be incredulous. That the director of the FBI had no idea about it. It's not just cat turd 69 me for Evs on X talking about, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself or not? It's the New York Times interviewing, forensic experts, asking them the same question. But I'll take him at his word, as he claimed he had not seen any of these reports at all, and Rogan had shown him at least 3 different reports in corporate media about this. I also thought Rogan, again, I just can't be smarter than everybody else. I just don't believe that. I'd like to. I love me some me. I'd like to believe that. But I said this about Brett Baer, Maria, what's her face, whose last name I can't ever pronounce on Fox Business.
Bartolomeo.
Thank you. And now Joe Rogan. Okay. This is the 3rd time now. There are obvious follow-up questions here, and they never get asked. I can't be the only person who's thought of these questions. So here's a follow-up question. How did perhaps the most high-value detainee in the U.S. prison system acquire the means to commit suicide, especially because he was already on suicide watch for trying to do it before? How is this possible? Never asked. Furthermore, to quote the great prophet Chris, not Tucker. How much for one rib? Who am I thinking of? From I'm going to get you, sucker.
Chris Rock.
Chris Rock, yeah. Can we get one name? One name. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell's got to be in prison for human trafficking to somebody here, Kash. Can't human traffic to yourself. I mean, if she didn't human traffic to anybody, then she should probably win her appeal and be released. So just give us a name. These are obvious follow-up questions. I don't understand why. This is the third time now. I've walked away saying, why aren't these questions asked? They're obvious follow-up questions. Obvious. Now, overall, I thought Rogan conducted a very good and revealing interview. I have no idea how it's possible not one of those, let alone both of them, could not be asked. Just dangling out there like participles, waiting to be answered. Patel relied frequently during the interview on his and Bongino's credibility. They didn't take these jobs, he kept saying. Basically, he was saying we didn't take these jobs to essentially sell out. He reiterated that several times. He also said many of the questions that we currently have about various policies will be answered over the next 100 days. He used the phrase, quote, "we'll give you as much as we can," end quote. He used this one numerous times throughout the 2 hours when asked about disclosure of various topics, including Epstein. Rogan also did not ask him about rehiring the whistleblowers, and he should have. But again, I thought overall, Rogan did conduct a revealing interview. Kash Patel said that he was recently swatted as the director of the FBI, that his family was swatted. He also said that many of the potential crimes, this is why you're not seeing people being rounded up, he said, is that many of the criminals and the crimes they committed to usurp the Trump administration illegally had already reached their statute of limitations. And he specifically mentioned how he was targeted by former Trump Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein. Remember that? Forgot that name. Remember that guy? Mm-hmm. Total clown. And then Rosenstein literally left a paper trail of orders saying, do not disclose this for 5 years because that would be after the statute of limitations. Patel also wanted to make sure, he said before he left, that the FBI is full of great people. Of course, most of those great people either complied with or were silent in the face of being turned into an American Stasi for the last 4 years or so. But I digress. So here's my conclusion after watching this. If you were voting for the dismantling of the FBI, you're not going to get anything close to your wish. Nothing even close. Everybody's debating that RFK Jr. is doing exactly what we want, too slow. You're not going to get anything close to that from these guys, is what I got. Maybe if the order was reversed and Dan was in charge and Kash was the assistant, I don't know the answer to that. But as long as Kash Patel is the director of the FBI, you're not getting any of that, was what I took away from the interview. Now, though, if you were like, I never thought that was realistic in the first place, nice Twitter talking point, and at this point, I just want to not have a knock on the door from the FBI at my house at 11 a.m. because I'm a patriot and they don't like the violation of their social credit score, then you can sleep well at night, at least for the next 4 years. At least for the next 4 years, you're going to get to be able to do that. But I don't know that much of the system or rot gut that is pre-existent that allows such an organization to be co-opted into an American Stasi. I don't know how much of any of that is going to get ripped out based on this conversation. Any thoughts on that before we move on to these clips? Fair, unfair, too far, not far enough? What do you think?
Well, I listened to enough of it that I had almost the exact same analysis. Places I thought he was sharp and inspiring. Places I thought, wow, we're talking on this topic. I should have way more than a yawn, but that's what I got. But yes, of course, over the last 4 years, it does seem at least we will not simply be, jacked around merely because we're Catholic or have a flag on our front porch or something like that. At some point, we have to return to having a country where every single election doesn't determine whether our way of life remains any close to level of intact or not. You know what I'm saying? That'd be nice.
But that's as far as the FBI is concerned, I got the impression coming out of this interview, that's not going to change. It's going to be way better and different than it was. But much of the superstructure that remained in place that allowed it to be co-opted in the first place will remain in place.
I'm picking up on a theme here, and I want to give, and I'm trying, and I think they deserve it, especially Dan Bongino. And that's not to take anything away from Kash Patel, but I just don't know him or of him quite as well as I do Dan Bongino. Trying to give them the maximum benefit of the doubt here. But I am, with Kash Patel, picking up on a theme. Just another couple of weeks, the next 100 days, and I'm waiting for some of these deliverables to be delivered. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. There is something, though, it was interesting, and I don't know if Kash brought this up because this is what he really wanted to talk about, or whether it was kind of a subtle message that this is the real threat here. This is what is worthy at this point of FBI's resources and time, but talking about the very complicated and very intricate international fentanyl problem. And he made the case pretty effectively. I agree that this is a clear and present danger that has to be stopped yesterday.
Basically a Chinese black op.
Yes.
Is what he all but described.
Yeah. It was
he literally said they're trying to basically kill off the next generation of potential soldiers.
Yes.
He literally said that.
Yeah. So that's interesting to note. So I don't know if that's what he wanted to talk about, or because that's going to be non-controversial and still placate to some degree the base, or if that's just genuinely the clear and present threat that the FBI is devoting so much of its resources towards. So that's kind of the big picture takeaway, because that's the only part of this interview that I watched in full.
Listen, there are parts. That's why I want to lead off with good stuff. Much of the interview is impressive, but if at some point we have to commit on the right at some level to dismantling the very system that can be just put to sleep and then weaponized against us later. We just cannot sustain this on an election by election basis, okay, to determine whether or not we can live, fundamentally free or not. And I just didn't see that commitment there. I just didn't see it. Maybe it's not realistic. Maybe the bureaucracy is too entrenched, and to get anything done, he's got to kiss some of their ass at the exact same time, which to me, that's also a problem. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I think that's very possible too. Okay. All right. So out of this interview, a couple of clips went around over the weekend on social media. And I want you guys to tell me whether or not you think these clips are fair. Okay. So this one is a side-by-side with Kash Patel and Pam Bondi talking about tapes involving Epstein Island. Watch this.
Again, logical play out. If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island, and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
Tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going.
Okay, so here's the thing. Patel also said they were reviewing videos.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to, relitigate for, victims and make them go through that again. I found that whole exchange to be confusing, frankly. Okay. In terms of what videos are we talking about here? Which ones aren't we talking about here? I don't know. Fair or foul, this clip, do you think, is it fair that's been going around over the weekend to kind of hold Kash Patel's feet to the fire? What do you think?
Well, it's fair because...
Or Pam Bondi's, by the way. She could be the one that should exaggerate, because she already exaggerated to us once. She could be doing it again.
Both equally. Yeah. The messaging is important. For the most part, this presidency has been outstanding. The messaging on this particular issue continues to be unclear as ever. With Kash, I do think his point on this was that if I had a tape that significantly changed our perception of this story and or the level of guilt, I would give it to you. It's not that I don't have tapes, but it would tell you what you already know about this or be needlessly salacious. That's the point I got about this. But it's just Keystone Cops on this issue, which is why I'm at the point like I am with aliens on this. You either show me the bodies or I just don't care.
Same. Because this is basically his boss saying something that is pretty much antithetical to what he is portrayed to have been saying there. Now, it could be out of context. You know, we are still in the process of reviewing, but if you don't think that I'm going to release something like this, you're out of your mind or you're mistaken. So it could be taken slightly out of context, but on its own in a vacuum, yeah, those statements are not reconcilable.
All right. This is another clip that went around over the weekend. Kash versus Kash, 23 versus 25. Watch this.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, you know, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if you release the names, right? And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. He killed himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this. Do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed?
All right, what do you think? Fair or foul?
This side by side is more fair. Why did he kill himself then?
Who was he human trafficking to? How many people that he was trafficking to were actually prosecuted? How many of them? It's not a crime to receive human trafficking. That's not a crime. It's only the crime to provide it.
When you take into account the mid-aughts, was Bill Barr involved with some sort of...
The second time. Yep.
And some sort of...
The first time, the Bush administration cut him the sweetheart deal, remember?
That's what I'm thinking
And then
about.
the Obama administration was fine with it too. And then when Trump came in, his first administration said, no, we're not honoring that. Okay? That's the train of events.
I'm trying to give Director Patel the maximum benefit of the doubt. But it's like I'm standing on top of an arsoned car in Los Angeles, breathing in plumes of thick, black, toxic smoke, and I'm being told that there is no fire.
Todd?
Well, I'm stuck in this place again, which is partially why I don't care, because it is entirely conceivable, in theory, that a total reprobate like Epstein did, in fact, kill himself. Just like, I think we're done here. I mean, look at what how he's negotiated his life morally up until that point. He gets in there, it's just done. Turn out the lights, and that we don't. Everything that we basically know, Prince Andrew, others, it doesn't go any further than that. That's possible, or which speaks to kind of the Kash now. Kash 2 years ago kind of speaks to like the worst case scenario is past your wildest dreams. It's like it's mission impossible. Like Bill Gates doesn't want you to know it, and he is also holding the government hostage because he's basically built in like a technological kill switch that if you come after me, everything goes dark. I think it's one or the other. And what can I do about this thing? I think Kash is speaking to 2 years ago when he had zero authority, and you can say things with no accountability. And now he's saying things that, I mean, maybe that's a hostage video right there. Maybe if I told you the truth, you'd never even believe me, and telling the truth would actually lead to a worse possible scenario than we can even possibly imagine. I don't know. All I know is... it seems to me I'm in Alien's place, and that might be the healthiest place to be about this thing. Because where have we moved the ball on this, Steve? We've been talking about this forever.
No, we had our Attorney General go out and try to de facto discredit some of our most important and prominent social media influencers with a stupid binder.
Yeah.
We got that. Okay. I will tell you, I shared this back and forth, Kash versus Kash, on X over the weekend, and just said, hey, what are your thoughts? Hundreds of comments poured in. I'm looking through them right now. I intended to wait until we got live on the show until I looked at the comments. Like, they're all negative. Like, nobody buys this, like, at all. Nobody buys this. Meaning that he either was in over his skis, just politicking in 23 and didn't really know the facts, and now he does, or he's been co-opted on this somehow. I mean, that's everybody's position, 100% down the line. Several people asking the same question I'm having, which is, then I guess we have to release Ghislaine Maxwell from prison. Whom did she human traffic to? Whom? It's just a crime to human traffic, to be the human trafficker. It's not a crime to receive human trafficking. So how many of the Epstein clients are currently in prison? How many of Ghislaine Maxwell's clients are currently in prison? How many?
I know, but the fact that this is so obvious to ask these kinds of questions and to never get answers.
Am I wrong that the follow-up questions I keep asking over and over again are also obvious and never get asked? They don't get asked by Rogan. They don't get asked by Maria. I still can't pronounce her last name. And they don't get asked by Brett Baer, although he does remember the words to Rapper's Delight. We saw that over the weekend. So Brett Baer remembers the words to Rapper's Delight, but can't possibly remember, hey, I mean, if the guy was already on suicide watch, how did he get the means to commit suicide? I mean, just anybody look into that? Am I just asking just like crazy questions that, because to me, they just seem like the most obvious follow-ups to try to get something more tangible? No? Did I just solve the Rubik's Cube here? Did I get knowledge from the antediluvian era? And so I'm able to come up with these very obvious follow-up questions that somehow no one else will ask?
Somehow the answer to these questions is like, if you don't push the button in the second season of Lost, or ever program the numbers in and push the button.
Great
because
analogy.
Really, I don't.
In other words, if we ask these questions, the whole thing implodes.
Yes.
So we can't ask them, and we just keep pushing the buttons. Desmond, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think there are two possibilities at play here. One is, I think this is the least likely. Maybe there's three possibilities. One is that everything they're telling us is absolutely true to their knowledge. And that maybe we've gone overly conspiratorial out here in the cheap seats. Number two, this is just too big for any man.
Mm-hmm.
Too big for any man. And three, some combination of the two.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see two for sure. More in a moment. Hey, I've got two questions for you. Have you considered, number one, how your investments might unknowingly fund policies undermine traditional American values? Number two, are your hard-earned investment dollars being used to oppose the Trump administration's agenda and the principles that make our nation great? Well, your investment dollars should work as hard as you do, and they should also align with the values that you hold dear. What many patriots, though, don't realize is that many standard investment portfolios include companies that actively work against those values and principles. But you have the power to influence this through strategic investment choices and shareholder advocacy. That's why you want to trust Constitution Wealth to help you with their team of seasoned professionals understand what matters to conservatives like us and act accordingly. So what sets them apart? Well, unlike many other financial advisors, Constitution Wealth specifically screens companies for their stance on conservative American values, ensuring your money supports the businesses that share those values. So join the growing movement of Americans taking back control of their financial impact. Don't wait until your investments have already funded causes that you oppose. Take control of the future of America today. Visit constitutionwealth.com/blaze for a free consultation. That's constitutionwealth.com/blaze. constitutionwealth.com/blaze. And please remember that Constitution Wealth is a registered investment advisor. You should review their disclosures at constitutionwealth.com to understand their services and fees. And remember that all investing involves risk, including the risk of loss. This is a paid endorsement. I am a client of the firm, but my opinions are my own. Good to talk to our good friend Brian Festa over at We the Patriots USA again. You can check them out. They are one of the few out there that they run to the fire. And there's a lot of fires in the culture right now. You can go check their website out, support their firm at wethepatriotsusa.org, wethepatriotsusa.org. We first got connected with Brian because it was basically a race between him and Matt Staver at Liberty Counsel to see who was going to be the first person willing with a national firm to go in and actually challenge the COVID scamdemic narrative. And that's how we got to know Brian. And we've kept in touch with him ever since because that wasn't just a one-trick pony. They're on the front lines of a lot of battles around the country, including this one, which you will not be surprised when Brian says this is maybe the most egregious violation of religious liberty he's ever seen. You will not be surprised where this occurred. Brian, good to see you, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you?
It's good to see you again. So, knock us over with a feather, brother. Where are you fighting what you think may be the most egregious violation of religious freedom you've ever seen?
Well, it's the great state, the Republic of California.
What?
Yes, California. Ventura County.
Yeah, and indeed. All right, finish. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Ventura, California, we had a 9th grade student expelled from school because he asserted a religious exemption to school vaccinations. Now, just for context, Steve, in case your listeners don't know, it's been 10 years. It's been a decade now since Californians have not had the right to opt out of any vaccinations required for school. So we're going way beyond COVID here. Even if there's just one vaccination they object to on religious grounds or even personal belief grounds, used to be personal belief exemptions were accepted in California, but that hasn't been the case since June of 2015. So Californians have been fighting for this for a long time, but we have the case that we think is finally going to win back their religious freedom. The reason I say that is the way in which this child was expelled from school was so egregious. As you mentioned, I believe it's the worst religious discrimination case we've seen in the context of vaccinations yet, because they not only kicked this kid out of school, but then after they kicked him out, he was an honors student, they failed him in every class, and then to add further insult to injury, they went after the parents, criminally charging them with truancy. The Ventura County Prosecutor's Office, the District Attorney's Office, is now going after the parents, pursuing criminal charges for truancy. Now, back up for a moment. The school created this problem. They kicked the child out. The parents didn't choose not to send their son to school anymore. They didn't choose to take him out of school and say he's just not going to get an education anymore. They wanted him to continue in school. The school kicked him out and now said, we're going to go after you, bring criminal charges for truancy against you. If that's not hostility to religion as outlined in the Masterpiece Cake Shop Supreme Court decision, I don't know what is.
In other words, they wanted to make an example out of him. They acted punitively with the intent of making an example out of him.
Exactly. And that's explicitly forbidden by the U.S. Constitution, the First Amendment. In the Masterpiece Cake Shop decision that I mentioned, that we all know, Jack Phillips in Colorado in 2018, the U.S. Supreme Court said just because they were using hostile language toward him in the commission's hearing, that was enough to say that is an impermissible violation of the First Amendment to display that kind of hostility. But this case is more egregious, in the sense that they've gone further and said, because we don't like your religious beliefs, we're going to criminally prosecute you. So that is paramount, in my opinion, to something you'd see in communist China or maybe the former Soviet Union or something. You know, that is not something you should be seeing in the United States in 2025.
So what happens now?
So we've already filed a federal lawsuit. We've also filed for a temporary restraining order and an emergency order, an application for a preliminary injunction. And what that would do if we win that is to basically issue a stay, an injunction against the school district from enforcing this. They would have to allow him back into school. Now, school ends in Ventura on June 11th, so that's 2 days from now. But the point is he'd have to be able to attend next year as well. and they wouldn't be able to pursue the criminal charges against him anymore if we're granted this preliminary injunction. So we're waiting for a hearing. It was just filed not even 2 weeks ago now. I think it's been about 10 days. So we're waiting to get a hearing. As soon as we get that hearing, hopefully that'll stop it. Even if it's denied, though, we're going to immediately appeal to the Ninth Circuit, where actually recently, we've had some favorable decisions in favor of religious liberty, even in the context of vaccine mandates. Last year, the LA County School District there was a case brought before them for their COVID mandate for their employees, and they actually lost. They got remanded for a trial, but then they filed for an appeal en banc, and it's still ongoing. But the point is the Ninth Circuit actually issued a decision in favor of the plaintiffs in that case. So we actually kind of like our chances of the Ninth Circuit, believe it or not. But even if we lose there, we think this is a case the Supreme Court is quite likely to take up because of the just inherent and so blatant hostility to religion here that's been displayed by the school district.
Are they attempting to get this remanded to a state court saying, hey, we're a school district, we're governed by the state of California Board of Education, this isn't a federal matter, et cetera, thinking they'd have a more favorable terrain to argue for this in the California court system?
They haven't done that, and I don't see how they could in this case because we haven't raised any purely state law claims. All of our claims are driven by the United States Constitution, which very clearly prohibits this kind of religious discrimination. And state courts have no authority to adjudicate questions of U.S. constitutional law. So even if they tried, we'd quickly defeat that. But no, they haven't raised that yet.
Who is the judge, right? Because my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Supreme Court justices themselves oversee certain circuits, correct? And in terms of being the initial filter about whether the court will hear a case, take a case, the full court will consider taking a case, right? They kind of act as the initial talisman here. Who oversees the Ninth Circuit there? Who's the Supreme Court justice that's kind of the guardrail for that?
You would have to ask me that off the top of my head. But you're right. I can look it up, but
because if it's Amy, I was going to tell you, if it's Amy Coney Barrett, brother, I might have I'd consider a plan B. If you know what I'm saying, G.
No, okay. It's Kagan.
Well,
it's Kagan. It's Elena Kagan. But believe it or not, it's not completely up to her. If we file if this is an emergency appeal, an emergency injunction, it's 4 justices have to vote to take it up. Right. She is the gatekeeper, so to speak, initially to review them. But if there's 3 other justices that really want this taken up, or at least 4 other justices that want it taken up, that is the quorum, so to speak, that you need to get this taken up at the Supreme Court. We came within 1 vote, even at the Second Circuit back in 2021 with the Kathy Hochul case when we filed an emergency appeal for the healthcare workers COVID mandate, where she said you couldn't use, if you remember, you can't use religious exemptions if you're a healthcare worker. Suddenly the First Amendment doesn't apply to you. We had Justices Thomas Alito and Gorsuch siding with us, and we were just seeking that 4th vote, and unfortunately we didn't get it that time around. I'm hopeful that now things are a little bit different. And hey, look at the unanimous decisions that were just handed out on Friday. Would you have expected unanimous 9-0 decisions on a gun rights case?
True.
And the other decision as well? I mean,
now there was a decision last week and this was Amy Coney Barrett's call to not hear a case involving a young man who was expelled from school and disciplined punitively also for wearing a shirt that basically said there's only 2 genders, deal with it, or something like that is what the shirt said, right? And so the court did allow that to stand, and Amy Coney Barrett, I can't remember if she was the 4th vote they couldn't get, or it was her district, I can't remember which it was, but she was instrumental in that case not being heard. Are you concerned about that precedent being used against you guys at some point, right? Because often one of the reasons that people think there's only 2 genders is because of their religious viewpoint.
Well, we do have the Morella Ramirez case, which we're actually about to appeal to the Ninth Circuit. We're preparing that right now because the magistrate judge in the Northern District of California did dismiss that. Well, unbelievably said that, I'm going to get myself in trouble. Let me word this carefully.
Is this the teacher case you brought to us last year?
Yes.
Is that what this one is? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she said in her decision that the school officials couldn't reasonably have been expected to know that they were violating the First Amendment when they fired this teacher for refusing on the basis of her religious beliefs to use preferred pronouns to refer to her kindergarten student, that they couldn't reasonably be expected to know that that's a violation of the First Amendment. And my jaw just dropped when I read that. I think we're going to win. I'm very confident at the Ninth Circuit. It may require an en banc review to get a full panel to win, but I couldn't believe when I read that decision. So to me, that's so blatant because she asserted clearly, and she even requested other kinds of accommodations. They refused her accommodations they could have provided her with. So I don't see how they win under the Groff standard, which is the new standard from the Supreme Court. They have to show there's an undue hardship, like a financial burden for them to accommodate her request for a religious accommodation. So I really don't know how they win in that case. But we're confident we're going to win that one too at the Ninth Circuit, if not the U.S. Supreme Court. But yeah, that was troubling to hear about that. I thought that case for sure was going to be taken up by the Supreme Court, but I don't know. I have to be careful what I say about judges, sure. At least on air. Yep. But yeah, I was disappointed to say the least.
All right, folks, this is just one of many examples they do at We the Patriots USA, fighting the good fight. If you want to support them, you can make a tax-deductible donation today. WeThePatriotsUSA.org is where you can go. You'll learn a lot about all the cases that they're working on. If you have a case that you want them to consider, you can go there too. Make a donation there as well. WeThePatriotsUSA.org. That's WeThePatriotsUSA.org. All right, good to see you again, Brian. Keep us posted, brother, okay?
I appreciate it, Steve. Thank you.
You bet. God bless. All right, gentlemen, we got about 4 minutes left. Your thoughts on this case and or the show in general today?
What a world. You can actively, as an illegal immigrant, wave a foreign flag and burn down, throw rocks at cops, light their cars on fire, and basically hold entire neighborhoods hostage. But as an actual citizen, you can't choose to not take a vaccine. That's no way to live, folks. I don't care how many distractions you've given yourself. That's just no way to live. Do better.
War is being declared on you repeatedly. I mean, it's over and over and over again, which is why that responses to the former conversation that we had today about Los Angeles and now just dovetailing in the most demonic and hellish way possible with this conversation that we just had, it requires a strong, decisive, and courageous response. Because nothing short of strength, courage, and decisiveness will actually defeat the forces that want to declare war on you and rule over you and really enslave you. That's what we're being told. Right now, we are blessed to have the power in Washington, D.C., at least in the executive branch, as long as the courts say that they can, of course. We're blessed to have that power. It needs to be wielded.
All right. So let's go to where we started today's show from. When we are back here tomorrow, you have a special edition. I'm traveling to Dallas to speak to a group of Southern Baptists, the Center for Baptist Leadership. They're convening at the same time as they're part of the Southern Baptist Convention's meeting down in Dallas. So I'm speaking at their banquet tomorrow night. So you're going to get a special edition tomorrow. I think this was the very first special edition we recorded this year with an incredible couple doing an incredible ministry. You're going to get a chance to get to know them tomorrow, and it's going to be very encouraging and inspiring, right? So when we convene together again live on Wednesday, I'll be in Dallas still doing the show from the Blaze, but you guys will be here. So we'll be back together. That's 48 hours from now, or 46 hours if we're being precise. 46 hours from now, all right? The Trump administration is winning the rioting discussion if blank.
I think if there are charges filed against a politician for fomenting insurrection, fomenting riots,
I'm game. I'm in.
See, if things on the ground demonstrably get better, which I think could happen in a number of ways, as a direct result of the Trump administration's intervention and or action, which I think could also happen in a number of ways. It could be arrests. It could be boots on the ground. It could be a number of things.
All right.
More than words.
All right. They're not winning if blank. 46 hours from now, next time we see each other.
This is the same or worse. What we're seeing every night. And just tune in. It's Riot TV. Time to turn in and see what's going on.
And we're just posting on social media.
Yeah.
You agree with that, Aaron?
Yes. There has to be action. Has to be. This is not just acting out. This is active trolling. This is active. I mean, the irony of this is that these politicians in California are blaming this on Trump for provoking this. They arrested murderers and sexual assaulters.
Yeah.
Honestly, they are the ones who are provoking a response. That's what's actually going on here. As always, it's upside down lies with communists.
We're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we will see you tomorrow with a special edition. Until then, Romans 8:28.